Princess Margaret, Countess of Snowdon, c. GCVO, CD, Margaret Rose, August 21, 1930, February 9, 2002, was the younger daughter of King George VI and Queen Elizabeth, and the only sibling of Queen Elizabeth II. Margaret spent much of her childhood with her parents and sister. Her life changed dramatically at the age of 6, when her paternal uncle, King Edward VIII, abdicated to marry divorcée Wallis Simpson. Margaret's father became king, and her sister became heir presumptive, with Margaret second in line to the throne. During the Second World War, the two sisters stayed at Windsor Castle despite suggestions to evacuate them to Canada. During the war years, Margaret was considered too young to perform any official duties and instead continued her education. After the war, Margaret fell in love with Group Captain Peter Townsend. In 1952, her father died, her sister became queen, and Townsend divorced his wife, Rosemary. He proposed to Margaret early the following year. Many in the government believed that he would be an unsuitable husband for the Queen's 22-year-old sister, and the Church of England refused to countenance marriage to a divorced man. 4. Margaret eventually abandoned her plans with Townsend and married photographer Antony Armstrong-Jones in 1960. The Queen made him Earl of Snowdon. The couple had a son, David, and a daughter, Sarah, before divorcing in 1978. Margaret was a controversial member of the British royal family. Her divorce in 1978 received much negative publicity, and her private life was for many years the subject of intense speculation by media and royal watchers. Her health gradually deteriorated in the final 2 decades of her life. She was a heavy smoker for most of her adult life and had a lung operation in 1985, a bout of pneumonia in 1993, and at least 3 strokes between 1998 and 2001. She died at King Edward VII's Hospital in London after suffering a final stroke on February 9, 2002. Margaret was born on August 21, 1930 at Wallis Castle in Scotland, 5, her mother's ancestral home, 6, and was affectionately known as Margot within the royal family. 7. She was delivered by Sir Henry Simpson, the royal obstetrician. 8. The Home Secretary, J. R. Clines, was present to verify the birth. The registration of her birth was delayed for several days to avoid her being numbered 13 in the parish register. 9. At the time of her birth, she was 4th in the line of succession to the British throne. Her father was the Duke of York, the second son of King George V and Queen Mary. Her mother was the Duchess of York, later Queen Elizabeth the Queen Mother, the youngest daughter of the 14th Earl and the Countess of Strathmore and Kinghorn. The Duchess of York originally wanted to name her second daughter Anne Margaret. As she explained to Queen Mary in a letter, "I am very anxious to call her Anne Margaret, as I think Anne of York sounds pretty, and Elizabeth and Anne go so well together." 10. King George V disliked the name Anne but approved of the alternative Margaret Rose. 11. Margaret was baptized in the private chapel of Buckingham Palace on October 30, 1930 by Cosmo Lang, the Archbishop of Canterbury. 14. Margaret's early life was spent primarily at the Yorks' residences at 145 Piccadilly, their townhouse in London, and Royal Lodge in Windsor. 15. The Yorks were perceived by the public as an ideal family: father, mother and children. 16. But unfounded rumors that Margaret was deaf and mute were not completely dispelled until Margaret's first main public appearance at her uncle Prince George's wedding in 1934. 17. She was educated alongside her sister, Princess Elizabeth, by their Scottish governess Marion Crawford. Margaret's education was mainly supervised by her mother, who in the words of Randolph Churchill never aimed at bringing her daughters up to be more than nicely behaved young ladies. 18. When Queen Mary insisted upon the importance of education, the Duchess of York commented, "I don't know what she meant. After all, I and my sisters only had governesses and we all married well, one of us very well." 19. Margaret was resentful about her limited education, especially in later years, and aimed criticism at her mother. 19. However, Margaret's mother told a friend that she regretted that her daughters did not go to school like other children. 20. And the employment of a governess rather than sending the girls to school may have been done only at the insistence of King George V. 21. J. M. Barrie, author of Peter Pan, reads stories to the sisters as children. 22. Margaret's grandfather, George V, died when she was 5, and her uncle succeeded as King Edward VIII. Less than a year later, on December 11, 1936, in the abdication crisis, he left the throne to marry Wallis Simpson, a twice-divorced American, whom neither the Church of England nor the Dominion governments would accept as queen. The Church would not recognize the marriage of a divorced woman with a living ex-husband as valid. Edward's abdication made a reluctant Duke of York the new King George VI, and Margaret became second in line to the throne, with the title the Princess Margaret to indicate her status as a child of the sovereign. 23. The family moved into Buckingham Palace. Margaret's room overlooked the Mall. 24. Margaret was a brownie in the first Buckingham Palace Brownie Pack, formed in 1937. She was also a Girl Guide and later a Sea Ranger. She served as president of Girl Guiding UK from 1965 until her death in 2002. 25-26. At the outbreak of World War II, Margaret and her sister were at Berkeley, on the Balmoral Castle estate, where they stayed until Christmas 1939, enduring nights so cold that drinking water in carafes by their bedside froze. 27. They spent Christmas at Sandringham House before moving to Windsor Castle, just outside London, for much of the remainder of the war. 28. Viscount Hailsham wrote to Prime Minister Winston Churchill to advise the evacuation of the princesses to the greater safety of Canada. 29. To which their mother famously replied, "The children won't go without me. I won't leave without the king. And the king will never leave." 30.